Peaky Blinders, the acclaimed gangster TV show, may be an entirely fictional narrative. However, its roots are sown in reality. We begin in the late 19th and early 20th century, in crime-ridden industrial England. The severe poverty which England was experiencing during this time period was of no doubt a contributor to the mass uprising of criminal gangs, both small and large, with pickpocketing being the gateway into this eventual life of crime for young men whom were out of work and out of luck. This leads us to the dirty industrial streets within the city of Birmingham. Pickpocketing was rife among the youth of this time, with only an ever-emerging, more violent culture arising. These criminals were evolving from common petty theft to violent assaults through stabbing and strangling. These young men, whom had had enough of the economic depravity, decided to take things into their own violent hands. The Peaky Blinders were born in March 1890, 30 years before the start of the TV show in 1919. They were cited in a British newspaper with the headline depicting the brutal bashing of an innocent man by a gang newly dubbed as the ominous Peaky Blinders. Like most gangs of the time, they craved notoriety and fame, getting more violent and more extreme as time went on. In semblance to the infamous Tommy Shelby, the man who perhaps came closest to the same level of infamy within the English criminal scene in the late 19th century was a man named Thomas Gilbert, subsequently known as Kevin Mooney. Kevin Mooney was the main instigator for a variety of gang-led activities, with perhaps the most prominent being the common form of gang rivalry known as land grabs. Through these violent, tedious land grabs, the Peaky Blinders became a single, powerful entity within Birmingham. Furthermore, what consolidated their power was the level of control they had over senior officials, with people in fields such as businesses and the law on their payroll. Funnily enough, in 1899, an Irish police constable, similar to Major Campbell on the TV show, was instilled within the Birmingham district to squash the presence of gang activity, in particular, the Peaky Blinders. This attempt at quenching the power of the Peaky Blinders, however, fell short, as the police force itself was riddled with corruption, bribed and sufficed by the same Peaky Blinders. They were dominating the scene in regard to every avenue of life and power, through their bribery and sheer willingness to commit heinous violence. Over time, these British gangsters were able to grow their avenue of criminal activities, including such activities as smuggling, bribery, robbery, protection rackets, hijacking, and fraud. This allowed them not only to control Birmingham for nearly 20 years, but also afford a variety of luxurious wealth, which the gang has also come to be known of. Much like in the TV series, the real-life Peaky Blinders did in fact wear the newsboy flat cap, as well as leather boots, waistcoats, tailored jackets, and silk scarves. This wealth did not only translate to the gang members themselves, their wives and extended families also enjoyed luxurious benefits, often dressing the occasion and making themselves known as associates of these grievous, powerful criminals. The members themselves taunted police by revealing themselves entirely in a fashionable sense, yet leaving the police powerless to move against them due to the sheer power they possessed. Some main real-life Peaky Blinders consisted of people such as Harry Foles, Stephen McNichol, Ernest Haynes, and David Taylor, all made known to us today through a variety of Midland police reports consisting of criminal activities such as robberies, assaults, and possessions of firearms. The Peaky Blinders reached their peak of power in the early 20th century, a similar time to when the TV series begins. After running Birmingham for almost 2 decades, the gang decided to enter the racetracks, nonetheless bringing their violent attitude to the race course in an attempt to gain power and control. However, this was met with severe hostility by an opposing gang known as the Birmingham Boys, led by none other than the Season 1 antagonist, known as Billy Kimber. And thus the once infamous and all-powerful Peaky Blinders gang came to a violent and bloody end, with their gang losing control and power in a mere few years. In the coming years after their usurping, families of the gang members decided to move into the country to abstain from violence and dread which was caused by the gang's previous actions. However, the gang responsible for the end of the real-life Peaky Blinders, the Birmingham Boys, would as well not survive a long tenure of power and control, being ultimately overthrown by an Italian gang in the 1930s, known only as the Sabini Gang. And yes, this refers to the antagonist of Season 2 of Peaky Blinders, Darby Sabini. However, that is a story for another video.